Welcome to the Ward 7 Concord City Council debate. I'm Tony Shinella, the editor of Concord, New Hampshire Patch. Thanks for being with us. If you didn't already know, we're in Concord TV studios. They are co-sponsoring a series of debates, and they're really forums, but we're going to call them debates here, with Patch, as well as the New England Take podcast. For the next 30 minutes or so, you're going to hear from the two candidates who are running in Ward 7. They'll have opening and closing statements, and then I'll ask some questions in between. Let's meet the 2003 candidates for Ward 7. They are in alphabetical order. The incumbent, Keith Nyan, and Jim Schlosser. Keith, challenger first, okay with you?
Absolutely, Tony.
Okay, Jim, you have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Keith, for joining us here today. My name is Jim Schlosser. I'm a physician. I served 19 years in the VA as a clinician and an organizational leader. I currently serve on the boards of the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness and the Unitarian Universalist Church of Concord. I'm a New Hampshire Master Gardener, and I volunteer at the Sycamore Community Garden at NHTI. I am a leader. Leadership takes what I call both hard skills like accounting and budget management and soft skills like collaboration. I have both. I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets in public hospitals and the VA, and I know that our city, as all municipal cities, we have to live within our means. Fiscal management and accountability are nothing new to me. Soft skills are also critical for leadership. I'm a trained facilitator, and I facilitated team improvement projects across the VA. I've learned that bringing people together can generate creative solutions to solve exceedingly complex problems. Compassion and values is what I do. It was a privilege to serve the veterans in the VA. It was rewarding and humbling. And now I'm focused on serving Concord.
Excellent, thank you. Keith?
Thank you. My name is Keith Nyan. I'm the 18-year incumbent Ward 7 City Councilor. Something I've been doing for, obviously, these last 18 years is something I enjoy very much. For those of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Concord. I was born at Concord Hospital. I grew up in the South End. I'm actually a fourth-generation resident of Concord South End. Grew up on Cottage Court, where I played at West Street Playground as a young child, and swam and played football at Rollins Park as an older child. My brother and father still live in Ward 7. My family friends, my childhood friends and their families still live in Ward 7. It's what I've called home for many, many years. Additional to that, I would say that my time on the council has been noted by a real mind for fiscal conservancy and championing the taxpayer. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Tony. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Keith, let's give you the first question here. There's a lot of problems facing the city, but probably one of the most important ones is all of the new faces that will be coming on board with the new mayor. Jim Boulay has decided to step down, as well as at least 4 city councilors. This is going to be a dynamic change. I've heard from a number of residents, it's not just me making it up, who fear the instability of the city with so many new faces. You've been there a long time. If you're reelected, how will you ensure that there'll be stable council proceedings and governance during the next 2 years, during a volatile time?
No, thank you for the question. I think your assessment is correct. I think the concern of residents is correct. The next biennium, which will be marked by at least 5 new council faces, maybe 11, will be certainly a period of some uncertainty, some unrest. I think for that reason alone, re-electing established leadership is incumbent or imperative in this case to maintain some of those some continuity of fiscal policies. Beyond that, I think it's collaboration. All of us need to come together and work together to move forward. But while the ideas and new faces will bring new ideas to governance, it's really about established leadership and moving forward in a thoughtful way.
Thank you. Jim, if you're elected, you'll be one of the new faces. What do you think?
Exactly. Well, there's a lot to learn. I think we have a strong city administration, the city manager, assistant city manager, all the department heads. They bring a real stability to this city. They really provide the foundation for the deliberations and decisions of the city council. And for those new people like me and others, I think a strong orientation, to the work of the city, how it works, briefings and that sort of thing would be very helpful. So it's both a blend of the stability of who we are as a city, the city administration, and the new voices and ideas that I think will be refreshing.
Thank you. Jim, this question's to you. One of the strengths of the mayor and several councils now has been to keep the tax rate around 3%. Last year it was it was close to 4. However, a new solid waste contract in the next fiscal year 2025 could raise the annual rate another 5 to 8% on top of the normal 3 to 4. While there could be some personal savings by ending the pay-as-you-throw tax, purple bag tax, I call it, but property taxes are currently paying some of the highest tax rates in the city's history. Renters are paying those too indirectly. What would you do to tackle the solid waste problem and keeping taxes in line?
So there's two issues here, Tony. One is the solid waste problem, and we know that reuse, recycle is the best thing to do. So promoting recycling is important, and we want to make sure that the new waste contract really promotes recycling and we don't lose ground on that. We know that when we lost the purple bags, waste volume went up, so that's really important. We might trial composting. Food waste is a large portion of the waste, and if there's some way to recycle that or compost it in some way, that would be very effective. But the deeper question you ask is about economic development and our tax base. And I think that really leads to housing, and we can talk about that separately, but the number one issue of business managers, business leaders, and hospital CEOs is housing. They can hire workers, but they have no place to live. And we know that people come to the businesses, drive the culture and arts and business of downtown. So I think people and housing are a key piece.
Cool, thank you. Keith, you're on solid waste. I want to do a sidebar, depending on how much time you take in your answer.
Sure. I feel to some extent that it's a loaded question. City of Concord
It is me, right?
Of course it is. For the past 10 years has enjoyed the best solid waste contract in the state, arguably in New England or the country, to the extent that Concord hasn't been paying for disposal of its recyclables during that time period. As Mr. Schlosser mentioned, every time we can divert anything out of the trash stream, there's a savings there. The new contract that the city negotiated is a good contract. It's a long-term contract. It's a market rate contract. It's something that we've been expecting. You're never going to see the tax rate go up, 5 to 8% on top of what it's already been. I can tell you from a proactive standpoint, Solid Waste Advisory Committee has now been working for several months on identifying new programs. One of those is food waste diversion. Another one is textile diversion, really empowering residents to take control of their trash. We do know that the more people recycle, the more savings there will be. It is still cheaper to dispose of recyclables than it is trash. And that's a core concept, but please, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have.
Yeah, so just to be clear, the 5 to 8% increase is based on the current rate of about $500,000 per 1% tax rate, and the initial cost of going from 0 to 100 tip fee for recycling and 70 to 100 trash, back of the envelope, according to city officials, is anywhere from $2.5 to $4 million on top, which would make it 5 to 8%. So it's not like I just made that up.
No, and I didn't mean to imply that, Tony.
Okay.
So really, what I would mean by that
there is going to be sticker shock. That's what I mean. That's fair, right?
So there will be sticker shock, but prior to the taxpayers ever seeing what that actual rate translates into a tax increase, there's a lot of budget deliberations, and certainly tax base expansion comes into that. There's
Sure,
also,
we can get to that too.
Yeah, I certainly hope we do. But there are other things that come into play as well, which is scrutiny of the operations budgets, the capital budgets. We haven't yet finalized how that program is going to be paid for. Certainly the majority of it will be transferred to the tax base. I don't know if we're going to be eliminating the purple trash bag program. That's a revenue stream. And that's part of the work that the council needs to do over the next 18 months. What I would tell everybody to do is, be proactive, talk to your city councilors, and know that we're scrutinizing every aspect of both the contract and operations plans.
I'm going to give you a little bit more time on the next question, on another question,
That's
Jim,
fine.
just to be fair. But in 15 seconds, Keith, can you just comment on what do you know what percentage because I've heard composting and I compost, so I know the difference that it makes, but it isn't like 5 purple bags a week. It's, it tends to be like maybe 1 every 2 months. But what do we have a percentage of what our trash is now of food waste? Is it 30%? Is it 10? Is it 60? Do we know?
I don't know, but there's a metric. I believe we recently posted something to the city's website on the general services page. And it's really not about volume, it's about weight. Weight is what drives trash, not volume.
Okay. Jim, let's go with you. We're going to talk about housing for a second. You brought it up in your answer
Sure.
about the tax rate and trash. It is a major issue in the city, but there's also at least 3,000, and this is a new number the city's confirmed, about 3,000 new units that are scheduled and planned over the next 3 to 7 years potentially, and including a number of major projects around the city. That only just catches us up, though. That doesn't really get us to where we need to be, where the market we needed those 20 years ago. So that may not be enough. And people are still moving to the city, as you know. As you were saying, you speak to people in your own industry that are talking about, hiring great employees and then having no place to live. What would you do in the next 2 years if you're elected to tackle that problem above and beyond what's already been done?
So we need the full range of housing. We need market rate housing. We need starter homes for young families. We need senior housing. We need affordable housing. And for some people with disabilities, we need supportive housing. So we need the full range. Everything will help. A key thing is to pass the new zoning ordinance, Concord Next. That allows for accessory dwelling units and will allow homeowners to infill, to build accessory dwelling units or a single family becoming a 2-family. I think what we're learning is that if we get the regulations out of the way and give homeowners the chance, they will sort of add units. The second thing is that the private sector is doing a lot of work right now in moving developments. If they don't do enough, then the city can work with private developers and the nonprofits to work collaboratively to develop financing agreements that can really accelerate the housing if there's a gap. So I think both the zoning ordinance, that will really help us a lot, and city taking a leadership to make sure we get the housing we need.
Take 15 seconds and just follow up with me on this. And the Ward 7 is really a strange mix of large lot, tight single family, and then multifamily too. Mm-hmm. In 15 seconds, if you're elected, how will you get the councilors who live in, say, Ward 5 or some parts of Ward 10, where they don't want the density, but the market really needs to have the density to kind of bring them to, well, hey, I'm in Ward 7 and we have all kinds of stuff and we live with it, right? Because there are going to be some councilors, we have NIMBY councilors, we have NIMBY councilor candidates as well, who don't want things built in their backyards. So like Ridge Road, where no one wants anything built on a whole 27 acres of land right next to the hospital.
We need to get the zoning regulations out of the way of homeowners and developers. I mean, if we relax the rules and allow homeowners and developers to do what they want to do in a thoughtful way, in a balanced way, the market can take care of this. If there's demand, it will grow. And I think everybody in all sectors of the city really benefits from addressing the housing, because their kids can't buy homes, their sons can't move out and get an apartment of their own. This housing affects everybody, and I think we can unite around that.
Thank you. Keith, and general thoughts, the 3,000 units are basically going to bring us up to speed. They're not really going to bring us down to $600 2 bedrooms that we had 20 years ago.
I don't think we're ever going to see $600 cheap bedrooms again. But it's actually a very good number. I'm glad you brought it up. For those who are in the public, 3,000 new units really represent 1,200 units in pre-development, 635 units currently in the permitting process, 765 currently pending construction. Of course, we're dealing with some rising costs, and 400 are currently under construction. As Mr. Schlosser said, and I can't state this firmly, we need housing of all shapes and styles. I firmly believe that I would prefer market rate housing, which generates movement within the housing markets, but make no questions about it, we need housing of all different styles: market rate, affordable housing, market rate housing, workforce housing. All housing is needed. The city, by the way, the 3,000 units didn't happen by accident. City's been working years to increase development, working with the public, and really, what I would tout is the public-private partnerships that we've used to create opportunities. I think what we, the council, can do is continue to foster those opportunities. The zoning code isn't the problem. As a matter of fact, the new code that's coming in will actually increase densities. And more importantly, while the densities increase, the new housing created will actually be in character with the existing housing, so as we don't ruin the character of our neighborhoods. Where I think the biggest pushback we've had over the years is in the administrative fees associated with development. We've eliminated, I want to say it was 30% of those over the last 18 months. Additionally, we actually held a process improvement opportunity to work with all the different departments to streamline that permitting process. So I think those are the kind of things that we need to continue to do. Public-private partnerships, and continue to eliminate roadblocks.
Keith, if you're reelected, give the voters in Ward 7 3 ideas that you will champion to expand the tax base.
Tax base expansion, it's early on in my career, I kept telling the city manager we need to do more with marketing. I didn't care if we had to put logos in the bottom of the swimming pools to increase revenues, put signage on our plows. Anything to increase revenues, I think, is important. Tax base expansion is a different matter altogether. Although we've tried hiring an economic development director, it didn't work, at least not in the climate that we implemented that last. We may find ourselves in an opportunity to try that again. In order for it to be successful, we really need to dedicate the budget and the marketing component to that. Additional to that, Concord is an untapped resource for travel and tourism. And while we may not be a destination with an attraction to keep people here for a week, we have plenty of opportunities to generate events, whether they be fests or increasing the vibrancy of our downtown. We can promote the tourism, and then again, I think there's more that we can do, and I'd love to come back to that if we can. Thank you.
Jim?
So 3 ideas. I think we need to present a better face in terms of, I agree with Keith around tourism. I mean, we can bring people in, and the Brady Sullivan development downtown near Storrs Street and the upgrade to Everett Arena could present a better face to the people driving by, and they may stop and visit us. I think that's an important area. I think housing will drive it because more people will drive business. And so I think the housing and the workforce, both the workforce will bring in the workers the businesses need. Businesses can't work here and develop commercial properties if they don't have workers. So I think really housing is critical, foundational for all of this. And we need to solve homelessness. That doesn't present a good face. And so solving homelessness, and it is solvable, I think will help us a lot.
I want to go to the homeless issue, and Jim, we'll start with you on this one. Crime has been escalating in Concord for a while. Just anecdotally, there used to be about 10 or 15 arrests when Patch first started 12 years ago, and now there can be dozens of arrests each week. But crimes by people who are homeless have exploded to the point where in the last year, in 2022, more than 20% of the arrests were homeless people, about 140 of the same people causing the same crimes over and over and over again. Some of these were transient in nature, criminal trespassing, but others were very serious: drug dealing, assaults, arson, and even murders. We are taping this. Logan Clegg has just been found guilty of killing 2 retirees today. A lot of people are frustrated by this. A lot of property owners are frustrated by this. You guys have seen this in your own ward with Martin Field. A woman gets attacked there. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Hazardous waste almost level of the camps, trying to clean them up. And while you're volunteers, essentially you're the first people. If I'm the homeowner, I'm going to say, Councilor, I got a camp in my backyard, come get the cops or whatever. What more can be done if you're elected as a civic leader? Because the public is going to turn to you. What more can be done to solve the problem?
Well, I just want to laud the increasing collaboration between the police department and the homeless outreach workers. I mean, I think that's really shown progress. So I think, and safety is really critical for our families and our kids. So I think crime has to be addressed. And so I think I would advise residents to report issues, either to the police department or to the new Capital Area Street Outreach Group. There's an email address, casoc@capbm.org, where residents can write. And that's a whole group of outreach workers which will go out and work with those homeless people. But I think both the police department and the outreach workers collaborating is really step one. And then we have to go upstream. We have to provide more housing so those people aren't in the woods, aren't camping, they have places to go.
Thank you. Keith?
Thank you. Homelessness is a severe problem. We can always talk about housing, but as we've already discussed, housing isn't going to happen with a snap of the fingers. I firmly believe that every elected official, certainly at the council level, has a mandate to work with city staff and other organizations such as, Concord's Coalition to End Homelessness, to identify and provide resources to individuals who want that help. That being said, the encampment issue that we are dealing with, particularly in Ward 7, has absolutely nothing to do with homeless families. These tend to be individuals who have a certain, whether it be behavioral health issues, addiction issues, but there have been some significant crimes committed. As I've said before, and certainly the families I spoke to while we cleaned up the 5 encampments over towards Russell Martin Park, I will do absolutely everything within the purview of my position to identify, prevent, and eliminate all of these camps from our neighborhood. They're creating unsafe situations. I want them gone. They need to be removed.
Thank you. Let's try and get 2 quick questions in since we're at the end here. Earlier this year, there was a discussion, and we'll go with Keith on this one. There was discussion about paying for childcare stipends for people to attend meetings and even travel expenses for city councilors and board members and attendees of meetings. Let's just talk about councilors for a second. Is it time to increase the annual stipend so that the city should not have to provide childcare for councilors and instead they can pay for their own childcare with an increased stipend? And if it should be increased, how much?
Well, I've been doing this for 18 years. It hasn't gone up. Do I think it needs to be increased? Not necessarily. Do I think we should be providing stipends? Absolutely not. Someone wants to get involved, but this is basically volunteer work. For those who don't know, we get paid $1,000 a year. I figured it out one year. It came out to like $1.73 per hour.
It's more like a dime, I would imagine.
Certain times. So no, we shouldn't be doing that. And I think it's naive and ill-advised to even suggest that we would want to pay committee members to do that. Whether or not we need to increase the councilor stipend, maybe we just put it. I would suggest we put it on a ballot, and it can only happen. By the way, you can only put the councilor pay increase on the budget on the ballot during an election year. So to actually generate some accountability, I would say put it on, and to include things such as should we increase it, how much, or should we eliminate it altogether?
Jim?
I don't think we should increase the stipend. But I think we have to just be mindful that some lower income people might be prohibited from participating because they don't have the kind of jobs or wherewithal that some of us do. And so I think some consideration might be for some sort of either reimbursement or stipends for lower income people should they be elected to city council.
Thank you. And quickly, the city has spent about $140,000 designing a new clubhouse for the Beaver Meadow Golf Course. A major tenant who is going to lease space out in the new building has dropped out, leading to a tweaking of the design. Some people think it's extravagant to have a golf course, never mind a new clubhouse. Other people think it's a great community asset. Let's go with you, Jim. Where do you come down on golf course improvements?
I think the golf course definitely needs an improvement. I mean, it's a little bit dog-eared and it's a great asset. And I think it could be a tourist attraction. I mean, it could bring revenue into the city if we upgrade that, have a nice restaurant, a venue for activities. It could bring people in. It could help all other businesses also. So it definitely should be considered.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have long been an opponent of the golf course. I don't golf myself. That being said, it is without question an asset. You need to invest in your assets or they depreciate. The clubhouse is in absolutely rough shape. I do think we need to invest some monies there. Coincidentally, Mr. Schlosser just mentioned it's an opportunity to generate revenue. Concord used to host the only professional women's PGA Tour event in New England. That went away primarily because of the condition of the course, condition of the clubhouse. We can address that, hopefully entice those folks back. There's also expanded opportunities for revenue generation from function space, et cetera. So in short, I've always critiqued the budget, analyzed the budget. I fully support the golf course and its operations, especially since it started adding opportunities for non-golfers to enjoy and use that facility.
Those are your candidates in Ward 7. We're going to go to closing statements now. And Keith, you go first this time. 1 minute.
1 minute. I don't think I can talk for 1 minute, but I'm just going to say again, my name is Keith Knight. I've been your incumbent councilor for 18 years. Born and raised here in Concord. I share the same concerns that you do as residents. I'm a state employee. I live on a budget. I'm used to, let me say, I understand the impact of municipal tax increases on those budgets. My kids go to school here. They went to school here. Really, my concerns are your concerns. Now, during this phase, which is likely to be best characterized as transitional, is not the time to be shifting to someone who doesn't have the experience, someone who doesn't have the familiarity with the budget, its nuances, the capital spending program. Now's the time you need experienced fiscal leadership and someone who's familiar with the issues and concerns of Ward 7 residents. I'm that person. I would consider it an honor if you sent me back for a 10th term. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim.
Thank you. Continuing to grow this wonderful city will take collaboration and consensus building. Our path forward needs to be grounded in the needs and values of all, and I mean all. Residents, homeowners, the business and nonprofit community, city workers, the needs and values of all. Effective communication about city issues allows everyone to be informed and participate meaningfully in decisions that matter to them. That's important. I commit to listening and communicating effectively with Ward 7 residents. For me, leadership is speaking up and standing up for what matters, for us, for our families, and for our future generations. As I said, I spent almost 20 years delivering and improving care for veterans. The past year, I donated a kidney to my brother in Pennsylvania. My neighbor had cancer surgery, so I mowed his lawn. The life of service and leadership is who I am. This is what I have to offer to Ward 7. Our community is rich in resources and human ingenuity. We can be a model for sustainability, compassion, equity, and prosperity. I invite you to join me in consciously evolving a city that works for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Election day in the city of Concord is Tuesday, November 7th. The polls are open at 7 a.m. and they'll be open until 7 p.m. You check out our online voters guide on Patch. It'll be up a week before, which will include their candidate profiles as well as all of our election stories. Voters in Ward 7 cast ballots at the Abbott Downing Elementary School on School Street, so get out and vote. For Concord TV and Noon, one more time.
Abbott Downing.
Abbott Downing, what did I say?
South Street.
South Street, Abbott Downing Elementary School on South Street. Yes, thank you. For Concord TV and the New England Take podcast, I'm Tony Shinella. Thanks again for tuning in.